Good morning. It's Wednesday, March 8th, 2023, and it's 7:30 or 7:42. Getting a little bit of late start. We had a little internet connectivity issue, but we are off and running. Call the SELCO committee meeting to order. The first, so we've called to order. The second item is a review and consider approval of bill schedules and warrants. First, we'll take up January 2023. Do we have any comments, questions on the warrants and bills for January 2023? Hearing none, if I have a motion to accept the warrant, approve the warrant and schedules for January 2023.
So move.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Moving on to February 2023, bill schedules and warrants. Do we have any comments on the warrant?
Just one question. We
Yes.
bought a new truck?
Yes. I'm just trying to remember which one.
Yeah, I don't know which one.
Is that the one for
this
next
one
year
is.
that has the hydraulic?
No, it was just
No.
like, it was just like, it was like a Ford.
No, we have.
Oh,
got,
Oh, but there was,
Lightning.
also, yeah.
yeah, we got
Yeah.
2 Ford Lightning EVs, and we did the Ford Mustang was this year, right? The Mach-E.
No.
Was that last year?
No, that was last year.
Okay.
Yeah, we had the 2 Lightnings. We have 1 left that to be delivered.
Okay.
Okay.
Have you received one of those lightnings yet?
2.
2.
Are those
Yeah,
ones
two.
with the batteries, part of the
Yeah.
problems, the Ford?
Oh, they're working out.
Yes.
Oh,
It
great.
seems like they like them. I just drove by it the first time, and I was like, it looks nice, but that's the
Oh, yeah,
most
these-
interaction I've had.
These
Okay.
2 in the back are our drivers.
Okay, well, we'll see what
I had a
happens.
question. What do we use DocuSign for? I mean, I know what DocuSign is, but
Oh, geez.
everything?
Most everything. Yeah.
Like for a customer contracts?
Everything internal.
Internal. So basically, once we went, remote with COVID and everything had to be signed, we still keep a lot of those processes internally to sign stuff. So like all the warrants that we pass and stuff to the town, we pass them to Chris and we sign them electronically. It works out nicely too, because if for some reason he's not, in his office to see something, 'cause he's in a meeting, he can see the
Sign
warrant wherever he is, because sometimes he's at the service area looking at stuff and boom.
So you
he's
have
in.
like a 2-signature approval for certain things or whatever, signature approval, and so you use DocuSign for that purposes?
Yes.
It's part of the internal controls?
Yeah.
Yes.
I got you.
And external. We've initiated our different various contracts through DocuSign. We are.
It was $30,000, so I was wondering
Oh.
what you use it for.
Well, that's actually a good point. Just as a quick tangent on that, that is under review because we also use Adobe for a lot of different uses, and so we're looking at shifting that to Adobe Sign.
Yeah, we switched. Our firm, I think, switched because it was a lot less expensive.
I think that's also including the cost that the town, I think that's part of the town's contract with it too.
Oh, really?
Because for certain things IT, we pay and then charge them afterwards.
Uh-huh.
So I think DocuSign's one of the ones that overlaps with the town as well.
I get you.
Okay, with that said, are we manually signing a copy of the warrant?
Yeah.
Great. Do we have any comments on February 2023 warrant, other than the truck that we think we know?
Or the EVs, yeah.
Okay. Motion to accept the warrants for
So
the
moved.
February 2023?
Second.
Okay, second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Moving on to item 3, review and consider approval meeting minutes of January 17th, 2023. I was not at that meeting, but I will entertain any corrections to said minutes.
Yeah, I just saw one typo, consumer price index in item 5. It says consumer.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on the minutes of January 17th? Okay, do we have, with the inclusion of Mr. Ruffolo's corrections to the minutes, do we have a motion to accept those minutes?
So move.
All right,
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can't vote, I wasn't there. Okay, the minutes for January 17th, 2023 are approved. The next item is voting for the 2022 Lutz Award recipient. Normally this, in the past, because we really didn't have an open meeting all the time, especially with COVID prior to, we weren't even on TV. The Lutz Award nominee was discussed at the meeting and open, we did it. Now, instead, because of open meeting rules and whatnot, we would prefer to do it in public. But we don't want to use the names of individuals. We've given them a letter, and people have seen the packages. And everyone's got a packet, nominees, or a bunch of distinguished folks who were nominated. And you were asked for your take on who you would recommend. For that Lutz Award nominee, it appears that all 5 board members chose the same candidate. And with that said, can I have a motion to accept, it happens to be candidate A, and then once we vote on it, and if it's approved, I will lose the name because
That's
I
good.
want to make sure that we do that, okay? So, do we have a motion to accept candidate A as the Lutz Award winner for 2022?
Yes.
Yeah?
Second?
Second, okay. All in favor
Drum roll.
of candidate A for the Lutz Award?
Yes.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. With that said, because it is open meeting, and we get the name out, even though the award ceremony isn't until, I think, in April at the annual meeting, that award winner is Allison O'Connor. There'll be more to follow on that at the award ceremony and whatnot, but other candidates for that, so. With that said, that has been decided. Okay, review and consider a vote of the Massachusetts Municipal Utility Self-Insurance Trust Voting Representative. I will leave that to you, sir.
All right, thank you. Excuse me. This is in the category of just housekeeping items. So we did this, I'd say, 2 years ago with Mike Quidadamo's transition. So in short, you know, we were part of this, I guess it's kind of a mouthful, but the Utility Self-Insurance Trust. And so in that last transition, we added the alternative vote to Jackie, and now with Jackie shifting her position, then we're looking to designate Jim as our alternative voting member. So in order to do so, given the construct of the trust requires a board vote as listed in the package, and that just formally allows Jim to serve as the alternative voting member should I not be able to attend and represent Shrewsbury on the
Okay.
insurance matters.
And it looks like if we approve this, that both the Mr. Trippy and I have to sign.
Yes.
And we'll do that. Any questions or comments on making Mr. Zucco our alternate representative?
Nope.
Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve Mr. Zucco as our alternative voting representative?
Second?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. So with that said, we will be approving that, and that Mr. Zucco will be the alternate representative. Great. The next item is review and consider a vote. This one looks interesting. MMWC battery project. One of my all-time favorites of getting some batteries in town. You want to take that, Mr. Roy?
Sure, I could kick that off and then perhaps hand the baton over to Becca. So we have been engaging with MWIC to engage in a competitive procurement process for a battery project for open to all of their members, and so this is basically the culmination of that review process, and so Becca's prepared a presentation to just kind of go through the overview, the particulars, and then the documents that we're asking for a vote and signature on. I guess the punchline is we have found this favorable, and hopefully going through some of the details that you'll see why we've come to that conclusion.
You able to bring it up, Becca?
Yep.
Yep, with some help.
Okay, that's fine.
Your window.
All right.
All right, it worked. Well, good morning, everyone. It's my first time presenting to you.
Oh, yes, that's right.
My name is Becca Keene. I'm our Director of Integrated Resources and Customer Experience, and I'm fairly new. I started in December. So again, it's my first time addressing you guys. I'm excited about the topic that's bringing me before you, which is a potential battery storage project. We think it's a pretty easy yes, and we hope you agree. It's a chance for us to save SELCO and its ratepayers money, avoid costs and stabilize rates, and that's something that's really needed right now against current affairs. So pretty excited to present it. We sent you a bunch of documents and paperwork associated with the project. It's a lot to get through, so I figured I'd just boil the highlights down to a couple slides. And I'll try to be quick because I know we're pretty packed here. Let's see if it works.
You may have to stop presenting because we shared screen.
Oh, yeah, okay. Technical difficulties here. I'll just manually move. Right, okay. So just quick background. So the genesis of this came from a conversation with MWIC and its member MLPs, who expressed interest in finding a vendor who would install batteries within each individual MLP territory, so behind the meter installations in the various MLP communities. By collaborating on a joint effort through MWIC, the MLPs could take advantage of economies of scale with the pricing, and also MWIC could help with the vetting process, which, speaking from experience, it can be a lot of work for staff to find qualified vendors, collect pricing data, and then compare deals. So I think it's great that MWIC went this route to support the MLPs. The RFI went out in mid-2022. 7 firms responded, and DeLorean Power was selected as the finalist based on, I think, 12 different metric criteria, price being the most heavily weighed, but there are a variety of other metrics that they considered while evaluating. So our team worked with MWIC and DeLorean to design a project tailored to SELCO. So our project will not look like every other project in the other communities that participated in the RFA. The SELCO specific battery would be a 5 megawatt, 15 megawatt hour battery, which I'm excited to see that size because with batteries, you really get more bang for your buck as you get bigger. So it's great that we could fit that size battery here in town. The location we're eyeing is Worthington Ave, right next to the Logan substation. There's plenty of space there, and it seems like the interconnection and design processes will be pretty straightforward. The term,
Is that the site that's right in the corner of Route 9 that we took possession of?
That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. The term is 20 years, starting hopefully in mid-2024, if we don't have further supply chain issues. And then the use case, batteries can be deployed in different manners in order to achieve certain goals. And we've settled on avoiding peak costs, specifically transmission and capacity costs in the next 20 years. In the agreement structure, we've decided upon is a shared savings structure in which our payments are based on actual avoided costs. And we will split that savings with DeLorean pretty evenly. And in my experience, this 50-50 split is pretty competitive. All right, so benefits. The big one is that MWIC models the project and has estimated that we could save, based on data available today, over $10 million in the next 20 years. That comes through avoided transmission costs, which is going to happen pretty immediately in years 2 through 5 of the project. We could save about $400K a year on transmission pretty immediately, and then another $100K on capacity. So together, that's about $500K a year in the coming years as soon as the battery's installed. So that's
Is that pre-split or post-split?
this is post.
Okay.
Yep. So pre, yeah, it was $1 million a year actually. So other tangential benefits, if you will, are energy arbitrage. This is where we would use the battery to buy megawatt hours off peak and then save it for when pricing is higher. This is monetizable, but it's not included in that $10.6 million. So it's an extra additional savings we could occur. Resilience, the battery, if needed, could be used as a short-term backup power resource. There are sustainability benefits because on-peak generation happens to be pretty fossil fuel intensive. So every megawatt hour we can avoid using does have a climate benefit. And also the shared savings model is pretty low risk, which is why we settled on it. There's no upfront investment from us. We really only pay if the battery is successfully dispatched. So we don't see much risk there. And I put on this slide that actually the biggest risk is probably not doing it or waiting, because it's an opportunity cost of not going after this savings, right? So that is the project in a nutshell. For you all, what we're asking from you is a vote that'll generally approve us participating in the project, and allow us to sign an administrative services agreement with MWIC, and then give Chris the authority to sign these other 3 documents associated with the project. And I do think in your packet there was one form that someone from the commission has to physically sign, just confirming this vote in paper for Delurian's financiers. They just want to see something confirming that. So that's pretty much it. Any questions? I'm sure there are.
Do you know if MWIC also gets a cut somehow, or what their role is, or administrative role, or fee
Their
structure
role,
is?
good question. This administrative services agreement, there will be a fee associated with that. That has not been put into that $10.6 million. So we should probably put that in to get another net value. It's not much monthly. And as you know, the way MWIC works is all the participating members split the fees. So it's going to depend on how many MOPs ultimately enroll in this program. So that'll be a monthly fee for them to administer.
And has there been any projections on what those fees are, or how that works, or that you know of?
No, I haven't seen anything yet, as far as I can tell. Chris, I think they're waiting for this vote to come through. That's how they usually operate, is they wait to see how many participants they have, and then they split the costs evenly.
Yeah, I find anytime we do stuff with MWIC, there's missing information, unfortunately. And that's the kind of information that's usually missing, how MWIC gets a fee or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's not atypical, but
Okay.
it is a typical question I think we have.
So we'll find out. I think they were hoping to confirm who's enrolling actually by the end of last month. So we should be able to have that soon if we ask for it.
Yeah, usually they want us to sign everything, and then we find out the
Yeah.
detail, which
way it
I
works.
understand, but that's not how really
Well,
life works.
and we could assign it and have the statement that we want to attach to it, that this is all,
Subject
bears
to.
upon,
Yeah.
subject to the
In escrow
determination of what their
understanding.
administrative fees.
I can't imagine it's much, to be honest, and it's probably well deserved. It's just that I don't think we should be signing things not knowing what the fee is for something.
And do we have any idea how many MLPs are actually barking at
Yes.
this one?
I'm going to stop sharing for a second because I have it right here. Quite a few.
Okay, so it looks like this is going to be
It's most of the members.
Most of the members.
I don't know the exact number, but I'd say of the 21 members, it's probably 20.
Yeah,
Is
15
there-
to 20.
Is there any economy of scale for DeLorean if, say, half the members do it versus others? Does that change the financial profile?
Well, good question. I don't think so because it went through the RFI process.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, say in theory, most everyone doesn't have their projects approved. That does not impact the bid price. So, in theory, given the pre-work and the indications that most utilities are favorable, I think that factored in, but it's already a contractually obligated price that can't change.
How about, why just 5? Is it a sizing issue as to the piece of land that we have?
It's actually an ISO issue. So as soon as we go over 5 megawatts, we become a generating asset in the marketplace.
Okay, so couldn't get a twofer and say we wouldn't want to put one at Logan and another one down at the substation down by Grafton?
We can do that. And
Well,
we're
you
actually
just
eyeing
split
that.
them and do 2 5s, so that doesn't count?
Yeah, so this Worthington site is our priority for, I would say, the year, right, Chris? Get something installed there, and then there are secondary locations that we've already started scouting. Patrick and Ralph have identified some places, and DeLorean has also give us pricing for another parcel in town. That seems a little more complicated from a permitting standpoint. So we figured prioritize this parcel and then investigate the others at the same time.
Yeah, we're not giving up the land, we're basically using the land, our land, with their battery on it.
Yep.
So a
They're
license.
signing, we're looking for you to authorize a license of
Site
use
license.
and, what is it?
Yeah,
Site
20
license and
20
use
years.
agreement.
Yeah.
Who's DeLorean? What do we know about them?
The flux capacitor?
That's all I think about.
That's all I know is, yeah, Back to the Future.
Yep.
Yeah,
Rick's excited about that.
yeah.
It's a great
They're based out
name.
of Virginia. I
Virginia.
know that they compared very well to the 6 other respondents. I have high-level info that I can send you
Mhm.
from MWIC that came out of the RFI on why they were the top performer.
And perhaps, so, yes, they're not the largest battery developer in the country. You know, I'd say they're probably on the smaller size, but background and qualifications were part of the criteria in the MWIC bid to show the financial security. A number of members were burned by the NEC. I don't
Sterling.
know,
Was it
bankruptcy.
Sterling?
I think it was, I don't know if Sterling was impacted by that.
They were the
but
ones that had won, and they were gonna have a number of them, and then all of a sudden NEC went up.
yes, and so that was a
NEC
surprise.
went up? What do you mean? They
Went belly up.
Oh, so yeah. Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
kind of question I'm asking, like, who are
Yes.
they and what's the bankruptcy risk and will they
Exactly.
disappear on
They
us?
have these
As
5
a
megawatt
long-term,
plants working,
you know,
batteries.
how are they
already-
funded? How are they backed? Who are they a subsidiary of something? You know, just the understanding of, you know, entering into a 20-year contract with somebody, just like,
Yes.
who are you?
Nope, that's a great question. I'll admit, I don't know that full story off the top of my head, but I do know it was part of the bid, so it gave me comfort in partnering. That was a big point of conversation because, you know, the NEC experience really pushed that. But they're large enough to qualify. It wasn't, you know, Joe's Garage storage that, you know, some folks call, and that is what it is. But so we, like Becca said, we can certainly provide that. But I know I was comfortable with the history on DeLorean. That was the other one, is they, shoot, I forget, but they have, you know, a portfolio of projects that they demonstrated performance on. MWIC is, you know, overseeing that with their experience and oversight of generation dispatch. So
So is this
I
like
think
a
that's it.
peaking plant? How are we using it?
Similar,
Where is it,
yep.
isn't it charging during the day or?
So it's
At night, I
the same model, exactly. So when we think that there's, actually DeLorean will dispatch it for us, but when we get signals that we're gonna hit a peak, the monthly transmission peak or the annual capacity peak, they'll discharge it to avoid that. And then also the same with energy arbitrage as well, generally. So if high LMP pricing is coming, they'll try to avoid that as well by charging off peak. So it's the same idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is, batteries are the size that there's a certain amount of discharges, or number of discharges, right? So this is not something that every night that this battery is gonna be
Right.
used to offset, only when, like,
Exactly.
once a month or twice a month or whatever.
Yeah, was it 10 months a run? 10 runs a month. So, and 120 over the course of the year, because every time you dispatch it, it degrades the battery. So like you said, you don't want to be doing that process every night. We won't make it to the 20-year mark if we're
Yep.
doing that.
And it comes with its own inverter or whatever, it takes the DC power that's got and makes AC to put it back on the grid. Do we have to, is that a separate charge that we'll have, or?
Process. I actually don't know that. Maybe Ralph or Patrick does. There is a charge for serving the station in terms of energy, just generally. So not filling the battery, but just.
Ralph, the question was, do they, when we take the AC power, we put it in a battery, it's now DC, do we need any special equipment added, or is it part of the cost of this battery to be able to discharge the battery and produce AC?
I think we need a transformer to bring the voltage up to the level of our distribution system, but I think any inverters are part of the package.
They are usually, like, that would be very strange if it wasn't.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, you buy this pig in a poke and we could, okay.
I was just looking, Mike, I was just looking up DeLorean. I mean, for
Oh,
what
yeah,
it's
good.
worth, just on their website, they don't look like fly-by-nighters.
Yeah, good.
They have some serious
Real.
motors in there.
Is there anything bad that could happen out of this? Like, I don't know, 20 years seems like a long time, like the technology will change, or like we're
Policy
committing,
change.
you know, the size of the the battery, which, you know, if I'm thinking like computers, it may be a mega battery now, but it may be nothing 20 years from now. Like the term feels long, and the concept's great, right? We all believe in this, so, but I don't have a sense of any of that. And is anything else bad could happen? Could a battery leak? Could it blow up? Could there be
Well,
like, could
what is-
someone miss it? How is it how's it trigger? Can someone miss the trigger, therefore we lose the savings? Just trying to get a feel for.
Well,
I mean, fires are the biggest concern usually with lithium ion. I'm assuming that's what it is, lithium ion.
Yep.
so what's the size of this? I mean, because that area is pretty congested, like, and there's houses all around there. Like, it's in a neighborhood, basically. I mean, even though it's on Route 9, it's like a neighborhood around there. So I guess my concern would be, how big is it? What's it going to look like? Does it make noise? You know, like and if it does, if it's silent, fine. But like, what's the size, and you know, what are the dangers surrounding it?
So the fire risk is somewhat mitigated. We've already met with planning about this in regards to a different project, but since we're outside, the fire concern is exacerbated if it's an indoor facility, right? And the battery at Worthington has been designed. It will fit in that fenced area that's in the corner. Patrick, do you remember what the square footage was of this one?
5,000?
Below 5,000, I believe. Yeah, below 5,000. And that's what planning told us, to keep it below that level as well.
Does it make noise? Like when it's running?
Nothing
No.
like a neighbor would hear.
Shouldn't make much.
There's
Nothing
like
compared to
cooling,
the-
And before that, they had transformers that were humming all the time, so.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
and they look like
Storage.
storage
The
containers.
shipping
Yeah.
containers.
The
almost.
Liberty, you know, like the big.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like self-contained, so there's no weather risk or something like that. Is that the idea? And like water or snow or whatever, even though it's outside,
Oh yeah, it's just.
sealed in.
I have a picture of it.
I don't
Usually
know. I
put
think
on
I have a picture right here.
Pedestal.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see
Some
that.
sort.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty much what it'll look like.
A bunch of storage
Yeah.
containers.
Yeah.
There it is.
Just started.
Pretty low
Where was
profile.
I don't know, somewhere.
that? Okay.
And if I may just add a
Is
quick,
that just like a series of them, or is that just one?
yeah,
That's a series of them, right?
yeah.
Yeah. But that's what it'll look like. It'll be a series of them. It won't be.
Oh, in order to get that power.
Yeah, that level.
And what's the triggering mechanism? How does it, like, who's spotting it to know when it triggers, and was that some kind of software pack control, or is that us doing that, or?
DeLorean will do that. That's part of the agreement. And it's, yeah, software and controls.
You're not gonna put any solar panels or anything like that there? Get any
Good
electricity?
question. That'd be more appropriate for
Is
him,
there
but
room?
I don't know
I
if there's
I don't
room.
see I don't see that as being
There's not enough room there.
solar panels.
Not enough
Question is
room
whether
there,
solar
yeah,
panels
not
are
really
in that
much
site.
room there.
That is a good
Storage.
business case, though, storage paired with solar.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah,
that's what I was
It
thinking. They
changes
usually pair
financials.
together, you know?
yeah.
So, if I may add a couple, just a quick comments. I think they tie together. So I think the question about what happens 20 years from now is a great question. You know, the economics of all of these assets are largely market-based, based on the current ISO, cost framework. And so I think just one of, at least this is my opinion, one of the biggest risks is the change in market structure that ISO has. And if anyone could predict that, I mean, they'd be clairvoyant. But that's one. And two, there's enough of these units that are based on a market construct as it is today. It'd be a pretty heavy lift, I think, to change it. So I still feel like that's low risk. That being said, the second piece is the Centec substation was mentioned in a comment a few minutes ago. So my thought is, in terms of deployment strategy, is the Worthington Ave parcel being a former substation that has a lot of infrastructure there that's still under the trap rock. There's a grounding grid. It's well suited to be a quick deployment for storage, and it's outside of a critical CELCO asset. If you know, like, it's off to the side. It's not part of the substation yard. So my thought is the Centec parcel, similar to the generating facility we have there today, that would be better suited for future SELCO-owned unit that we can then fully control, leverage for, microgridding, where, we can take that full, $1 million benefit, if you will. And so these other off-site parcels like a Worthington or this, I've dubbed it the Centex sliver, but the one that's literally on the Grafton line, that's very slender. We're looking at that. That one, again, off to the side, not part of a critical asset. That could, again, be another third-party partner because it's a nice advantage to not have any capital outlay. But I think some of these substation units would be better suited for a SELCO-owned model. Plus, we have a few others on the docket that we're looking at that are being proposed by other outside entities. So that's kind of just a nutshell of my thought about future risk, and if we own it, we can leverage a lot more of the full capability of the battery, and I think that would be something we deploy inside our substation boundaries.
Yeah, I think this is a good pilot
Yeah.
program. It's the right spot at the right time. Even the NEC battery had purge systems and everything else was all self-contained, self-sealed. So if there was a problem with the battery, there was very little opportunity for escape of anything, fumes and whatnot. It was all sealed, and looking at the pictures here, it looks like they're pretty much of the same ilk. Additionally, we've also talked not only about Centec, but, we also talked about putting a second solar array down at the
Landfill.
Pardon, yeah, well, I don't want to call it the landfill, but anyways, but when they top off the second one, but there was also discussion at that time of being able to put additional battery banks, because we'll have the infrastructure down there as well for the future, but we can't get there without trying on a new one, so I'm kind of in favor of this one, so, but, no, it's up to you folks. Any other comments and questions on this?
Yeah, I'm obviously in favor. I'm just like, any project, and I have plenty of clients that get into this, they sign contracts that sound great, and the savings always sound great. And then, 5 years in, there's some fee, or some termination fee, a relocation fee, or the numbers don't add up, particularly with a 20-year contract. And so it's not that I wouldn't be in favor, I'm totally in favor. I just always like to, try to figure out, okay, what are the 10 risks associated with this, and what are the answers to those risks? So I tried to come up with, okay, DeLorean, right? Okay, we're comfortable with DeLorean. The next would be, like a fire or danger or something relative to the risk. The others is the battery. The things I could think of is, like an audit risk, like how do we test, that the savings are real and that when we're getting, like how does that all vetted out? How are the batteries removed after 20 years? But it's just a list of items that I would be asking about, saying, okay, what does this really look like carrying out? Yeah.
I was just going to raise that as that's a really important piece as part of the contract to make sure that decommissioning the liability is on them, and not us. I would assume it's kind of basic in the terms of these agreements, but it's a really important piece because we don't want to be,
stuck with 20 batteries and now what?
sitting
And
there
how do we
deal with.
dispose of them and all that? Sometimes there could be a high cost to these kinds of things. So anyway, those are the kinds of questions. Maybe that's all been vetted. It's just I'm not hearing it in the report, and so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah,
the
I just put up on the screen MWIC's snapshot of the valuation criteria from the RFI process. So you'll see decommissioning is there. Insurance references, credit is there. So maybe we could get more access to information for each slice that you've identified.
Yeah, I see our board as we're a supervisory board. Either we ask the questions and get answers, or we're comfortable that somebody else has, and maybe we're comfortable somebody else has. But that's why I'm asking the questions.
Yep, and that was part of the beauty of MWIC vetting for
Right.
us as well. They're well versed in this.
I would just add, every contract I have signed personally, as in my career, whether it be solar, not battery yet, has always included a provision to return the site to pre-project conditions, just as a given.
Okay, good.
So that's why.
So are there any environmental issues when you remove it and do?
As of right now, no.
I wouldn't see any self-contained. They're kind of trailers.
Nothing's gonna
almost.
seep into the
They just come as a
ground.
big crane, they just load the whole thing down.
This is the actual unit, sorry, that,
No, I've seen it. I
Yeah.
just,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you just come in and you crane it out and take it away.
Not buried or anything.
Sorry to belabor this, but I know
Oh.
I know we have a lot on the agenda.
No.
But just one quick comment on risk. With the state of the industry right now, these, even this company, right? They look like they have pretty deep experience, but they're only 4 years old, right? The odds of them being the entity in 20 years are probably
0.
one,
Yeah.
right? The acquisitions
Right.
that are happening in the industry are remarkable. So they're a developer owner, right? And unlike NEC was a little different, where they were a sort of battery manufacturer, right? They went belly up in that regard, and they delved into some of that development. But this is just, they probably have financing. They got a bunch of people who know what they're doing. They're partnering with different folks. They're holding on to the asset, operating the asset. They'll build up enough and flip in
Right.
3 years,
Right.
probably. Right. So that is, obviously in whatever contracting, it's whatever. I mean, you're the lawyer, you know better. Like whatever entity then
Right.
owns the asset is where who we're going to have to deal with in 20 years.
Right.
So, but just relative to MWEC and some of the this is more of a question now. The estimates on transmission, avoided costs and some of the other things that they did, was that MWEC's analysis or was that the developer's analysis?
So it was MWIC's model.
Okay.
They gave it to us and then we vetted it as well.
Okay.
So I validated all the assumptions. I played around with the scenarios as well.
Okay.
So it was not provided by DeLorean.
Okay.
And a
You
comment,
don't need a loaded
Matt,
tractor.
on yours, I kind of see this as lower risk than a PPA, where we're locking ourselves into a 20-year term and have a fixed payment across that duration. Since this is all attached to actualized savings, even if that falls apart in 15 years, I guess the risk to us is that there's a physical asset in town that we still have to decommission, but.
And lost opportunity, I guess, right?
Exactly, yeah. So I felt a little more comfortable with this structure than I would a traditional PPA even.
Well, I mean, it's no financial outlay, and they're putting the asset on it, so
Yeah.
from that perspective. That's why it says almost sounds too good to be true.
Right.
But, which is why I'm a little more suspect, actually. So,
Any other comments? Hearing none, I'm looking for a motion over the following recommendation, that we recommend the commission vote to approve participation in MWIC's behind-the-meter BTM Battery Energy Storage System BESS program with selected vendor DeLorean, and authorize 4 agreements associated with the project. Specifically, these agreements are the Administrative Service Agreement between SELCO and MWIC, and the definitive form agreements between SELCO and DeLorean, which include the Energy Storage Services Agreement, the Interconnection Agreement, and the Site License and Use Agreement.
I'll just say, and this is actually certifying that this actual vote is the one.
And there's,
The hyperlink at the top.
okay, over here for the vote, right? Okay. Okay, so,
On the second page.
yeah. And if you go to the hyperlink that says vote on that, and go to the second page on that, it says authorization to participate in the MWIC's behind-the-meter best and approval of agreement. And that's got the complete, basically what I just read.
you want to move on the form of resolutions that MWEC provided? So we've been presented with MWEC form of resolution, and we are moving on that form of resolution, I assume?
Yes.
In the vote as written.
We have
Yep.
what is written.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so moved.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Great. We'll move on to the battery. Take baby steps to bring battery to Shrewsbury as another
Yeah.
backup, and Peak Shaver, and
You want
in a green endeavor to make it happen.
Yep.
That's right. Great. Okay. Thank you very much.
Hopefully we didn't run you through the rails too much on that.
I think they went.
I'm excited.
Yeah, definitely. Great.
It's
Are
our
you looking
first
for all the things
meeting.
we said?
First meeting.
Any minutes? Any minutes to sign?
I didn't see any minutes either.
Okay.
Crack staff's working.
Yeah.
Anyways, the next issue is review and consider approval of the 2023 electric budget.
Okay, let's see. I had some technical difficulties earlier, but
Good luck to you.
Yeah, we are gonna see if we can get this all to work now.
Well,
And-
while you're pulling that up, could I just ask a quick question on the batteries? What was the commissioning date we're shooting for that? Do we have one?
Mid-24.
Mid-24.
Yes.
Okay.
I hope that doesn't slip, but it might be
great.
ambitious. We would miss the capacity peak for next year, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
but-
So before we start with the budget presentation, I just wanted to go and highlight a couple things. This is kind of Chris's third year it's going to be at this company. And when you see management change at a company, it's good to just kind of take a step back and look at, hey, what is being done, what has been done. And there's a quote that I like from a TV show when I was younger, and it basically says, when everything's going right, it's like you've done nothing at all. Right? And what this basically means, and I always looked at it as parents, right? If your parents are, putting all the dishes away and doing all this stuff, nobody notices it, right? But the minute the dishes pile up, you notice what's going wrong. That, to me, in a nutshell, defines our industry. So people really only notice when our services aren't there. But I just wanted to take a minute to kind of highlight some of these things that we're working on, because I will say, not even just for this industry or municipality, but we're working on a lot of aggressive project and company changing things. So just to start off, we have 4 major company-wide initiatives. One is the Fiber to the Premises project. This is basically, we had to update our head end. This involves putting all new distribution systems in. We have to hit every houses with drops. Then we have to convert every customer. And then there's also SELCO Stream kind of baked into this, which is its own kind of major project. On the electric side, we have the AMI meter project, which involves implementing a meter data management system, replacing every meter in town. We're going to be doing, moving our billing process over from handheld over to remote reads, and then we'll be adding an OMS system to do outages. A company-wide initiative is moving over to our systems over to NISC. This replaced our finance system. We're replacing our billing systems. It replaces our billing and collection companies, those vendors that send out the bills and how we collect payments. And basically, we're redesigning almost every process and job function in the company. And at the same time, we're also going through kind of a space evaluation project where it's, how are we going to where do we put our inventory? How do we keep, a good flow of inventory for both the electric and cable side, given like the current constraints with stuff? Where do we have, employee space needs? And, how do we get SELCO as best we can under one roof, stuff like that. Now, those are just some of the major stuff, but at the same time, we're doing things like changing culture, building leadership. We went through a union negotiation. We're doing the franchise agreement, which is every 10 years. We've done comp studies to take a look at employees' salaries and pay corrections. We're implementing and working on formal review processes. We'll be updating the handbook to come. We're going to start working on a strategic plan. We've been going through compliance reviews. We've added 2 departments with HR and purchasing. And that's not all. We've also done 2 cost of service studies and rate designs. We're working with IT to start looking at building a contract agreement with the town. We're upgrading all the internal IT infrastructure. With the police station, we had all this additional work to bring infrastructure there, and then IT stuff. We're building out an EV program with chargers. We're building out what we consider inventory to match what is kind of typical with the industry. We're looking at updating our SCADA system, and then we have possible decommissions of substations and maybe peaker plants. And then we do our daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly tasks. That's all said with that. We have 32 new employees out of the 72 we currently have, which includes 1 temp. And we've been doing this. Just one of the things I wanted to highlight, because as customers, commissioners, everything, we kind of forget the electric infrastructure is the biggest machine in the world. We drive by it every day. As long as it's working, we ignore it. But these are all the different things that we work on behind the scenes kind of. And I think it's one of those things that I just want to make sure we highlight and show people, because Mike, you ask a lot of great questions like in the last presentation, and sometimes somebody witnessing that could be like, why aren't they asking those questions beforehand? And sometimes we are asking those questions, but you don't have the time to really get in as depth on one issue as you really would like to, but you have to make decisions, or you have to, ride opportunities with sometimes that limited or a little less information than you'd like. But I just wanted to highlight some of these things because we got a lot of folks working really hard, and I feel as though that's part of management's responsibility, is to show, hey, we're doing a great job back there, and these are some of the things. That said,
Here.
we will move on to the budget presentation. And I will say that that was kind of a nice leadway. I had a lot of help this year with the budget. It was great. Chris helped organize some stuff. Becca's team did a lot of analysis and different things. All the directors provided all this information, which allowed us to put this budget together in very good time.
Can I just ask one quick question?
Always.
I love the foot on the gas. I loved your analogy as well, because my wife is away and I literally had the stack of dishes. It was a great, very poignant analogy. But I've had times in my career felt like I was boiling the ocean, not getting anything accomplished. That is a remarkable amount of like stuff, and kudos to everybody. Do we have a sense, like, I mean, is everything moving forward well? Are there pieces we should like pause on and focus? And because there's things of burnout, it's a competitive environment, employee retention, all these things are real. And I think kudos to you guys for taking it all on.
And that's some of the reason to kind of highlight this stuff. But there's also, sometimes you have to do things, right? So our infrastructures, one of the best analogies I heard, it's a little tired. So we have to make sure we're building and keeping that infrastructure on, the electric side. Our cable infrastructure, we don't have a choice not to move to fiber. At the same point in time, to kind of bring all this together, we need the systems that get us the information so that we can utilize this stuff. So a lot of this is more of an out of necessity than it is just, hey, we want to gung-ho, and we want to make sure with the ever evolving and changing and rapid pace of this industry moving forward, we got to be there. And what's really unique about us is we have two divisions that operate very differently, right? Electric, you use energy, you pay for the energy you use. That's one whole type of thought process, where the other industry, you are just paying for connectivity and access to that stuff. You're prepaying for it. So even those mindsets of how they operate are fundamentally different. And we need the tools to be able to, have the data to show, when we're presenting stuff, to say, hey, look, here's what we're seeing. So that's why we're taking on so much stuff, and we're trying to, make sure we're doing it in a manner that we're setting ourselves up and our employees up for success in the future. So stripping down things that make one employee the only person that knows how to do something or can, understand how this, and I love Chris's analogy of the Rube Goldberg, type of process where, hey, you hit this and it kind of tickles down. When you have one person that knows that and you're trying to change something, very stressful on them.
Yeah,
But
that's great.
so now on to the presentation. We'll start off with the electric budget, and we're just going to cover these areas of the budget first. We'll start off with operating revenue. Now, I'm going to get to something in a couple of slides that'll kind of show the format that I changed, and I proposed something about GTA and the stuff, but I wanted to just go through kind of the clean numbers first. Taking a look at operating revenue, we're predicting our gross revenue is going to increase this year from about 34 million to about 36 million. Taking a look at our energy sales, we see these decreasing about 2% lower over 2022. Taking a look at our operating expenses, our total operating expenses are expected to increase about 5% this year, and we've held them pretty tight, but we do have a little bit of cushion in there for some of the increases based on inflation and stuff like that. Jumping into our net income. And this is what I want to explain. We don't have the full financial picture yet in 2022. We're still closing the books, but we're looking at an impact of about negative net income of 1.2 million. We designed the GTA to help in the fall offset this loss, because that loss is contributed to purchase power. So that's kind of the intent of the GTA, and I'll go over that in a future slide. Looking at our adjusted net income between the 2 years, it actually brings what we're predicting to be about a $4.9 million net income in 2023. When we average those out between the 2 years, we get about 3.7 million, and that brings us down in line for this year between about the 8 to 9% plant on return. Now, you have to remember 2022's return at that point comes to 0, so it actually kind of averages out between the 2 years more of a 4.5-ish%. And that's kind of where we want to see stuff and we're comfortable with at this point. Now, I'm newer to, and I say newer to this industry, I've been in it 8 years now, but I never had the mindset of, utility industry. I came from software, private type stuff. And so there's certain things I find that interest me. And as I learn those things, I'd like to start presenting them to the commission and to the public so they can kind of see stuff. It's kind of unique. And one of that is kind of this GTA impact. So this is the schedule that you guys saw in the binder. And basically what this shows is, we have our, every year we're showing, what the actual numbers were with a 5-year estimate. We have our estimated 2022, but then this year's a little unique because I got 3 columns over here showing 3 different numbers. Column I is basically showing what our revenue would be if we didn't have a GTA rate change this year. So in the fall, we have a certain set of, forecasts from MWEC that project what costs are going to be. With that, we created the GTA rate, and we figured out how, everything had to be for, recapturing what we knew was going to be losses, and then predicting what we're going to need going forward. If we were to have used that analysis for the purchase power area as well, you would see these numbers to be higher. Since then, more up-to-date forecasts have come out. These things every, 4 months kind of change?
Quarterly.
Yeah, quarterly, you're going to get new forecasts, they're going to change. And so we were able to update what would be our purchase power with, 2023 forecasts. So if we were to, just from a budget perspective, take what the rates are currently, okay, without any changes, and we were to look at what the, updated purchase power would be, we'd be looking at, a net income of about 8.9 million this year. So we're like, well, that doesn't show the picture correctly because, that would be over collecting on purchase power. So we looked at just, the academic approach of, well, let's strip GTA out of what the revenue would be. How does that look? And you can see we're at a net loss for this year. That doesn't show our financial picture correctly in our opinion either. So what we did was we adjusted, and this is more in line with what should actually happen as this spring comes and we do our full GTA analysis. That, seeing the numbers that we have today, we'll be over collecting. That GTA rate could go down. It could, provide a refund to the customer. But we feel as though this is more in line with what's actually going to happen. So in column K, and those are the numbers we're using for this forecast, that shows a prediction of us adjusting the GTA rate either, I think it was May, for May, as of May. So as things happen, those numbers might change, and we have to once again present that for approval, all that type of stuff, but that's how we kind of came to these numbers. And I just put in a couple different charts down here to show what the actual return on plant would be. And you could see this was 11%, not 9%, but the 9% is, or 8 to 9% is when you adjust that across prior year. And the reason we can do that again is because it's related to the purchase power costs, and this GTA is the mechanism to help adjust that. And just so everybody kind of understands, the whole intent is to make sure a business doesn't go under because, or make way too much profit because of purchase power costs. Those are kind of out of our control. That was a lot of information, so I just want to give you a second to digest it. But this is something unique I saw and I wanted to share.
So what you're really saying is, we've already approved a GTA rate. We're making more money than we thought we were going to make because it's costing us less to buy power. The question is, do we do away completely with the GTA rate, which puts us in the hole just like we were last year so we don't make up what we had? Or do we shave a little bit of the GTA away, make a nice profit, but not excessive? Or do we completely gouge the customer and keep the GTA as high as we possibly can
Nice.
until such time as we're proven otherwise, in preparation for what may or may not be a large spike in the summer due to demand?
It's kind of like that, but we would never get rid of the GTA. This is just kind of to show you what that would look like, right? More from that academic approach. I just want you to understand, because when I started this industry, and it can be called a GTA, a PCA. People were saying those terms to me, and I'm going, "What are you talking about?" It didn't jive with anything I had ever heard or knew or kind of understood before. So seeing this and being able to see the impact as I was doing this, I wanted to just show you guys so you can kind of understand this is really a powerful mechanism to make sure the company isn't over collecting or under collecting on purchase power.
And your budget that you're presenting to us is using
Yes.
K,
Yes,
which is the shaved down
exactly.
portion of GTA.
Is there a limit in how much you can collect, percentage-wise?
Yes, so once you get to the 8% going over that, and I say this with some caveats, that's where you can run into some issues. But it's, from my understanding, there's only one MLP that I've heard of that has been looked into by the DPU for going over that. And I think it has to be consecutively over the course of years.
Yeah.
There's certain certain ways where if, let's say, you had, I think it's 1% for a bunch of years and all of a sudden you went to 9%, because your retained earnings are at that 1%, I believe there's a certain amount of acceptability.
I would just quickly summarize that as my understanding is sustained surplus over 8% over multiple years would get a review. Otherwise, jockeying power supply costs that hover around that 8, 9, 10% return is never.
How about an IOU? If they have any controls,
No.
they can get what they want.
Yes.
So the bottom line is that if the way you're proposing this, the GTA would be adjusted in May billing or
Yes.
June billing.
But caveat to that, we haven't done our thorough modeling.
Yeah.
So this is just a scenario that we've evaluated based
With a
on the
budget.
data.
For your
So next
consideration.
month, over the next few weeks, we'll do that analysis once we get December actuals.
Which would, yeah.
It might be different than this looks.
Okay.
But I think what this showed us too was that our plan to revisit the GTA quarterly is still the best thing to do, because look at what's changed in the past couple of months since we presented before. So we still plan to stick to that schedule through the budget year.
And it's better to do that anytime your prices become more volatile. That's what I learned through this based on what Becca provided me.
Oh, but doing it quarterly, we could also reduce it again, right? So this is just,
Right.
this is just
planning
implemented
purposes,
for,
yeah, for the-
Yes.
for one GTA change, but not what could be
Multiple.
multiple.
Exactly, and it could go up after that because we don't know what the energy's, what's going to happen.
Yep, yep.
Right, so, and that's one of the reasons why we don't also go into that deep dive, look at this type of stuff now, because in a couple of months, there might be an additional update that Becca can use to review that GTA. But I just wanted to show you guys, because sometimes you're like, well, how do they come up with these numbers? It's not easy because it's a moving target, man.
Yeah.
So now, moving on, capital additions to plant. One thing you'll notice if you kept last year's budget, a lot of this stuff is the same. And now a lot of it's the same for a couple different reasons. Some of it is we actually made some of these purchases, earlier last year, or made them last year, and they just haven't been delivered yet. We had the conversations about vehicles earlier. Some of the vehicles we've been looking to buy, some of the line trucks, they're like a year out to get those. So we've placed POs, we're in line, and some of that stuff will be delivered and paid for in 2023. Some of the projects had to be pushed just because of supply chain issues. And like this National Grid, the first one, we're at, National Grid's running that project, so unless, they have to kick it off and start it, and then, we join in. But taking a look at that, I just wanted to show, because it is a higher number. If you were to take a look at what our capital budget spend was last year, it was, we were predicting it would be about 6.3 million. That was a big increase for last year. Well, if you look at what was actually spent right now compared to what we had budgeted, we're at about a $5 million difference. And if you take a look, that means we're only looking at about $1.1 million of new capital spend that, you know, and if you kind of remember from last year, this is stuff dating back from 2020. One of the things that's unique about this industry, the grid requires what the grid requires. You can't short the grid on infrastructure. It's one of those things that when you have to do replacements and stuff, they have to be done. There's not that option, and that's why we're on that rate base pay. So taking a look, our capital retirements, I'm predicting right now it'll be around 700,000. That number may change as we, you know, complete more or less capital projects. One thing I wanted to start pointing out was an area for additional acquisitions. This is like our inventory costs. Our actual inventory costs for 2022 were about 315K. We're predicting they'll be about 375. But one thing to note, as we expand what our inventory is and what's considered inventory, that number will go up, but it just comes out of what amounts are hitting expenses. So dollar amount to the company, it doesn't change, but just where it kind of is. Inventory will be increasing so we can have a stronger work order process and system. Now, taking a look at cash flow, I go into this a little bit deeper in the next slide, but basically...
Oh, before you go, just looking at the previous discussion that you had, there's a list, one of the sub-points is EV chargers. There's something about a DC fast charger at Worthington.
Oh.
What's that?
Do you want me to speak to that?
Sure.
I'll speak to that. So, geez, with the battery, it even ties to that.
Sounds like we're making a service station down at the electric service station. We're going to go into the business.
Yes. So, so one of the projected ideas, or hopefully this comes to fruition, but on Worthington, same parcel as we just talked about with the battery. You know, high profile position, location on Route 9. And as we electrify the fleet, one of the challenges we face is being able to have the units, you know, the vehicles charge in sufficient amount of time. So the idea is to place that on Route 9. That way we can use it. And when it's not in use, unlike a pump that's behind the fence, and we fill it with, you know, SELCO gasoline, this can be used by the public, and they can then help offset the cost to do so. So that's one theory for the siting. Second part of that is I've been working on, you know, being persuasive with Kevin and those folks to use some of the ARPA funding for the DC fast charger. And so Patrick has been working on a proposal to throw some costs together to see if that would fit for ARPA funding. So we threw that in here where the ARPA funding would pay for a portion of the equipment, and then the budget, our budget, would cover the interconnect and infrastructure costs. And the idea would be to get our first DC fast charger.
Okay, and the only other question I had on the capital stuff is we were going to replace a couple of trucks, and it says these hybrid trucks will use rechargeable batteries for the hydraulic system that operates the bucket articulation. My question is, in a blackout or with an ice storm where we'd go for 3 or 4 days and we have these things that need to be recharged because they're electric, does the truck itself have the ability to be run to recharge the battery?
That's a great question.
Yes, it can be.
It can be.
Yeah, it will automatically, the batteries deplete.
Okay.
The engine will kick on automatically to start charging. It's not
Okay.
like you have to plug these things.
Yeah, that's my concern, was that we were going to have a bunch of dead
No.
trucks that could pull poles but nothing else.
Even an electric heater into the cab off the batteries to
Okay.
keep it warm for the winter, so it's drawing off of these things.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
So it will kick on automatically.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem.
Are you foreseeing any issues with the audit when because you're changing how you're expensing inventory now?
So I've worked through that to a degree. There will be restatements this year for some of the inventory evaluations. But there's no like game stopping issues, because basically we went last year from FIFO to weighted average for how we were evaluating. As well, we changed what items were inventory. And I've always, since I started this industry, I've been looking for that answer. What should inventory be? Like, what is, how do you define what needs to be inventory? And it's kind of up to our discretion. And with that, what we're going to let kind of drive that is a couple different things. Is this item used, are we buying something and it's used for a project right away and we can either capitalize or expense it, or is it something we're buying and storing and it's going to be used for later use? We don't know if it'll be capital, we don't know if it'll be expense, and where it's going to be pulled into a work order that we want to be able to understand the full cost of that project. So we're utilizing that kind of concept in frame of mind to go, okay, these are the items that we believe are inventory. From what the auditors have expressed to me that they really care about is if we say we have $1 million of inventory, because that's an asset on our books, they want to see that $1 million of inventory. That's their biggest concern. What we have as inventory, they're not as worried about. For certain items that we've changed, mindset to say, okay, like for IT equipment, we're looking at, potentially, or not potentially, we're not going to start capitalizing computers. They don't make sense to be capitalized anymore, especially on the electric side of the house, because we're restricted at basically kind of 3% overall plant. And, it's best practice now that we're on laptops to really only keep a laptop while it's under warranty. The laptops are warranted for 3 years. So basically, you'd be capitalizing something for 2 years of 3% depreciation and then having it all hit at the end. And then if there's, some sort of salvage cost, trying to figure that out is just too much, especially the cost of these laptops are usually under $1,000. So as we're building those type of policies and doing stuff, everything we've kind of run by the auditors, they haven't had any flags. They can't tell us what to do, but they can answer questions about going forward, are we going to have any issues here? The biggest issue I potentially see with inventory is like on the cable side, we changed what it was, and our cable inventory is everywhere. We don't have space for inventory right now. And it was kind of eye-opening for all of us because we're going, oh my God, we have stuff stuffed in every little area. And now we're even trying to figure out, in the short term, how do we get all this stuff, more organized? Where are we putting that, and how does that work? So it's exciting times for inventory.
But you have been working directly with the auditors.
Yes. Yep.
In parcels, so they understand that when they walk in, it's not going to be like getting hit on the head with a baseball.
No. And they've so far, I've shown them all my different files for how I did stuff, and they're like, oh, that makes sense. They haven't gone through the detailed reviews. But they're like, we like what you're putting down. That makes sense to us, So, our big goal this year, the audit was got pushed off a little bit because of the implementation of our new software. But we brought to them like a bunch of the bigger issues we had to say, hey, when we're meeting with you in May, we don't want any surprises. How does this look? And we fixed that. I think they like the accumulated depreciation correction on the cable side.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, one last
Yes,
capital question. Thank you. One quick point on the fast charger. If there's a way to bank fast charge, if the funding's there, Patrick's been doing, that's the key. The fast chargers. That's what people want. Yeah. So I'd love to see the fast chargers.
So you say it potentially have several rather
more
than
of
just
them,
one.
Yeah, if you see,
Yeah,
you pull up
okay.
to like one of the Tesla ones, right? There's 8 of them, right, in a row. I mean, if you're, if the infrastructure's there and
gonna do
the
it,
capacities
do it,
to do it,
Yep.
that's the key to the EV deployment right there.
do.
But just quickly relative to one of your bullet points and the MDMS and the AMI metering, it seems like in reading this, the MDMS, there's like an immediate benefit with the changes in NISC and just the overall data management. As we deploy advanced metering throughout the town, is the ultimate goal there? I guess what is our driving intent of AMI meter deployment now? Are we working towards like time of use rates and like, what is the backdrop to that?
Well, that's a,
There's a bunch of.
yeah, that's,
Okay.
wait, what time do we have to be done?
Yeah,
take
I mean,
some of
maybe
it.
we
I
can
can answer some
shelve
of it.
that.
No,
Can we flag that maybe for something like a
think
little
that's a
deeper
great
dive?
question.
Because that's a really,
Yeah.
that's a big transformative type thing for the town that I think.
I am compelled, if I may, add 3 bullet points just off the top of my head on that one. Is yes, innovative rate structures, so time of use being one of them, one option. I particularly, especially we talk about storage, further, distributed generation, utility scale generation. So I, perhaps it's my engineering background, but like the fact that now every end device would essentially be a power quality recorder. So we'll have more intelligence into how the grid is operating than we ever had before. So that's part 2. And then 3 is using all that information, to your point about MDM and the NISC project, that can now all feed into a customer interface that's more robust than anyone's ever seen.
And that is very beneficial because, coming from a utility, we used to get a lot of questions for, this is way too high of a bill. And we'd be able to go right into our customer portal and show them, be like, so you came back from vacation on Tuesday the 19th, right? And it was a hot day that day, and you started using your air conditioning. And you forget, when your customer service, it can sometimes be a very challenging phone call with an irate customer, and now you have to kind of educate them, as best you can on certain things. And when you can show them stuff like that, it makes the task much easier.
Yeah. That piece right there, that last point, is that seems to be the most tangible, the thing we're going to get to first with all of
Yes.
this. Yeah.
Yeah, that and outage management is a very nice feature because if everything's set up right and goes well, once you have that whole grid, and we'll know before the customer sometimes that they're out of power, right? And we can start building different policies and rules. Okay, you had 1 customer out of power at 2 a.m. Do you get a truck to roll? Oh, we got 10 customers, trucks are rolling. It helps make those business decisions, as well as customers can now report outages through, their apps and different type of things. And it helps with predictive nature too, to say, hey, is this transformer? Is it the feeder? Now I'm talking about words and things I don't actually know because I'm more on the accounting side. But it keeps rolling up, and it can help them diagnose where these issues are much faster. But this is getting to that next level of,
Even prior to getting to the more dynamic rate structures, this data can help us validate our current structures as well. So like the cost of service study that we're planning to go through soon, if we can provide more nuanced data during that process, it really helps us validate, are the rates working, are they not? And it, like you said, it brings it to another level.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, this could be a fun one if there's a void in an agenda sometime to do a deep dive.
Yeah, because it's changed. We had a discussion a couple of years ago about what was going on, but now we've got new equipment, new technology, and whatever, so it'd be worthwhile to take that. Okay.
Okay, so cash flow, the exciting stuff. So taking a look, there's
Maria just woke up.
you got a couple different funds on the electric side that I wanted to highlight. Our main operating fund, our depreciation fund, this PCA fund, and a construction fund. Basically, one of the things that I'm going to try to start doing, and this isn't to insult anyone's intelligence or anything like that, but when I go through the budget, you saw this year, there's a little explanation about the depreciation fund. Those are just, once again, those little things that I'm trying to learn, like, how is that actually supposed to work? And one of the cool tidbits I just kind of wanted to highlight, because I don't think this happens actually this way in the industry, but is, every year when you're trying to figure out what's my capital spend, most MLPs will say, oh, it's whatever your depreciation expenses from the prior year. Well, the depreciation fund is to help fund the assets so that by the time they're retired, you already have built up some replacement value. It can be, depending on your policy, full and more. It could be replacement value of the cost of what the asset was when you bought it. It could be a little bit less, but prevent you from having to go out and bond. So one of the things I've noticed throughout the industry is most people, they don't actively fund this every year. So we were trying to figure out the best balance to make sure we're funding it. And the intent is really, if you're buying new capital items, it probably shouldn't be pulled out of the depreciation fund. It's more replacement items. So we have funded this the last 2 years. It was something that our accountant Stacy had picked up and I liked. But the reason I call this out is because if you take a look at, you know, the starting operating cash of like 6.2 million and the ending at 6.6, you're like, okay, that looks pretty good. But in the middle, you start to see numbers that are in the 2 millions and maybe you get a little worried. The reason I bring this up is we have, you know, we're predicting about $6.3 million of capital spend. You'll see at the end of the year, I'm pulling in on this chart 3.6 million out of the depreciation fund. That in theory can be pulled out at any point in the year. So if our capital spend was to increase earlier in the year, we could just pull that out earlier in the year to make those adjustments. In reality, this is all on paper. We have one bank account. Our money, we won't run out of money to be able to draw from that because it'll be both, you know, the depreciation and the operating fund from a bank account perspective is the same. We just keep that, you know, in focus. So to do just a little bit of discussion, if you guys were looking at your prior year books, you might go, okay, in January 2022, we had, you know, 14.9 million, we're down to 6.2. What happened? Where did that 8.7 million go? Well, there's basically 3 contributing factors to that. We transferred 2.5 million to depreciation through the process I just spoke about. And if you guys remember, we transferred about 5 million to MWEC's working capital account. That's still our money, it just resides with MWEC. And I haven't figured out a great way to show this on the cash flow. We get a monthly analysis done by them that gives us the balance, so we know all that stuff, but every time I've tried to put it on a cash flow to show, it would raise more questions than it would answer or suffice, so I'm still working on how to show that. But the last item is the 1.2 net loss from 2022's income that we talked about already that we're recouping through the GTA rates. So I just wanted to show you guys that so nobody, you know, got all of a sudden really nervous to say, oh wow, these you know, numbers are you know, really dropping. There's still the majority of that money there and will be, you know, still is with us and will be recouping the amount that was lost. Now, any questions on the electric side?
If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the electric budget as proposed.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
Okay. Now on to the cable budget. Again, we'll hit these same areas. Taking a look, I just wanted to throw the income statement in general just so we can kind of see what it looks like, what you guys are seeing, and then we'll dive in. I changed the format of some of the charts in the presentation just because I'm working on what looks the best and kind of, you know, presents the cleanest. But we can see, you know, we're estimating our overall operating revenue will increase slightly. I think it's only like 300,000 to 400,000 this year. One of the toughest parts about predicting the revenue this year, and it'll kind of stay that way until, you know, fiber is a little more stabilized, but is we have the fiber project coming, we have SELCO Stream coming, we have with NISC coming, and then with the signals that we've talked about in prior meeting being disconnected, we have all these different moving pieces, factors, and whatnot coming into play, and they're all competing with each other. Some things require people to get over to these new services as quickly as possible. Other things are saying we should wait a little bit to get those things over to, you know, these certain humps. So it's kind of that balance of until we get NISC fully implemented on the service side in May, there's certain things that we don't want to increase quickly, but at the same time, we are still want to be moving people over to SELCO Stream, over to fiber as we can. And I'm speaking more at the high level of this stuff. People behind me understand this in much more detail, but you get in those meetings and it's competing type things. So we did our best analysis to kind of plan and predict where we would be throughout these projects at different points in the year, customer adoption throughout the year, and how we kind of target the change. Because all of a sudden, if you move over to fiber, you might, increase or decrease your plan. I actually heard a customer the other day find out that they could move over to fiber, and it was the same dollar amount, and they were extremely ecstatic. I heard them, about 10 feet away. They're like, that is amazing. I want to go that way. Some people may decide at that point too to increase or decrease what they need. But that's where we're at with revenue. Taking a look at the expense side, we're predicting expenses increase from about 17.5 million to about 19 million. Some of this is due to inflation in items like that, but I also we're in the process of moving IT expenses over to the cable side of the business. And there's a couple different reasons for this, and the end all be all will be we're going to have this net out, so some of these costs will move over appropriately to the town and to the electric department. But for right now, I just want to make sure if there's anything that is missed or doesn't get fully taken out of cable that we're capturing that. But basically, we're trying to move the IT department to kind of like how SMC was considered on SELCO's books. Because at the end of the day, we have to make sure we're supporting our IT infrastructure to a certain degree. We're attached to the town that has budgetary restraints, and we can't always be tied for everything to those budgetary restraints. So we've been working with the town to get certain things out of what's considered IT budget on their side over to managers' budgets and whatnot, but kind of the understanding of we can't, you can't lose the integrity and security of the IT infrastructure. So the goal will be to kind of have all this live with cable and then charge out the cost to the electric, to the town, and actually to the cable department in itself.
But you'll be booking the gross expense, right? And then the income will go up for
Yes.
what you're charging them. So like, we'll see a gross, we won't see a netted
Yes.
amount on that.
And what we'll also see is, let's say the actual cost is higher than what what we can be able to charge at this time, that'll get put into pilot, because that technically is part of a pilot contribution. Now, we may look to,
Pilot being payment in lieu of taxes.
Correct.
So the benefit to us that we're giving the town.
Yes, yes. That is, as I learned through the last audit, any services that we are providing the town, we should be accounting for those and including that outside of the cash contribution as pilot. We will also look at different points in time. It might be something where, because fiscal and calendar year budgets don't line up, there might be a true up where it's like, hey, this year you guys were a little under, we realized we didn't recoup X cost, next year we're including that. But that'll all depend on what budgetary restraints are on the side of the town. We just also will make more of a formal agreement at some point. We've been working toward that, to basically say, here are the services provided, here's what both parties are responsible for. That was basically suggested to us both by legal and insurance consultants, because we now go through a yearly insurance review. PERMA is our risk management company, which is a nonprofit. They do a great job. They had someone running their department who was great. She retired, and the woman that replaced her is equally as amazing in taking them to the next level. And she's doing these reviews, and we asked her, she said that we should, once we get to that point, we have a contract, we can get insurance to make sure if anything we do affects the town, we're covered, the town's covered, that type of stuff. Okay, taking a look at net income. Net income is projected to go down a little bit from 2022. This is primarily because of the increase currently that I was talking about in expenses, and just trying to factor in for that. But we're still in a good place for where we'd like to be. And moving on to capital additions. Similar to electric, a bunch of the stuff in here is very similar year over year, because the biggest item we've been able to get to right now is the fiber to the premises stuff. So certain things, I believe there's maybe one more truck or a couple more vehicles coming in, stuff like that from orders. One thing to note, this $2.1 million does not include what we're capitalizing for the bond. I'll touch upon that in the next slide. I didn't want to put that in here because we do a much more comprehensive analysis at the end of the year to understand what nodes are in service, what lines are in service, to understand what's being capitalized. And without knowing how far we'll get with different constraints, I didn't want to throw numbers that we weren't overly comfortable with yet. Taking a look at the capital retirements, this number may increase depending on how much fiber we get into the ground and stuff, but mainly is going to be with modems and converters when we switch over to fiber and SELCO stream, so as cable boxes start coming back. Now, the additional acquisitions portion is what I was just referring to from a project cost perspective. That includes that, and you can see I tried to list what the funding source would be, as well as the amounts we think are going to cover every area. We expect spend, and this is spend, but it also may reflect kind of what would be capitalized depending on how much is done by the end of the year. But we're looking at about $6.1 million. Jumping down now to the cash flow statement, you can see here, we're starting the year off about 14 million, and we're ending the year at 14 million as well. One item to note, the franchise payment is different than it's been previously. We have our 2 payments that are from the prior franchise agreement, and we've adjusted the amount to correspond with what the new amount coming out of cable will be if and when, I'll say, the franchise agreement's passed, approved. One thing I didn't mention on the electric side, the pilot payment did increase to offset the value we are giving to make sure we're still giving the town the same amount of money, but it's coming more appropriately out of the correct divisions. Our pilot payment based on industry average was lower on the electric side than it should have been. Now taking a look.
Just real quick, really, what we're really doing is just helping the town maintain a level budget, because
Yes.
nominally, based on just the franchise agreement which we have for cable, because about 46% of the customers have cut the cord, the town would have received a lot less from us overall.
Right.
However, Chris, working with the town manager, has ironed out that there are other things that we do for the town that we can pay for on the electric side to offset, so that the budget doesn't get unfairly affected.
Correct.
As far as I know.
And we actually, with the new franchise agreement, strengthened the position for both the town and SELCO, because a lot of the stuff that was above and beyond, if anybody else ever tried to come in and offer a franchise agreement, they could offer the bare minimum agreement the town has to accept, and then all those additional things that we offer go out the door. So this helps stabilize and make sure, through future, anybody who's running either side, we're staying stable.
Okay.
Now, taking a look just at the bond funding, with our spending this year, we're hoping to reduce the bond so it ends with about $700,000. One of the things that, and I think based on the timing of the bond, there's so much time where we're supposed to be spending down the bond, and I think this puts us on track to meet those 3-year requirements. And then one thing to note, the depreciation fund on the cable side is something we do, but is not governed by statute. On the electric side, by statute, we have to have that. So this is more of an earmarked process, and a lot of this depreciation funds are earmarked to help fund the fiber project. In regards to the fiber project, we are currently going through IFB 9, which will give us new projections, and we have a consultant looking into, once we get those new projections, providing us with a kind of an update, forecast to complete, and understanding of what that project cost and outlook will be.
Is there any value left to all of the modems and remotes and all that are gonna be brought back? Is that all just gonna be?
Recycling value? There always is. I don't know if the cost to recycle would outweigh the money that you get back, but there's still the benefit of going through those processes for any type of electronic equipment being recycled, because you're making sure you're doing your part, for the environment, for the planet, doing the right thing there. Plus, you're getting any thing that is of value. They'll take apart those items and get them to where they should be. But there's nothing that's going to be like
It's not.
a big win.
Right.
Some of those have been deployed since I've been in middle school.
Yeah.
And I may look young, but I'm past that midlife crisis point.
No, you're not.
Yeah. I just read that in an article the other day. If you're in your upper 30s, you've already passed. And I was like, oh, interesting.
Not really.
Just wait.
I don't want to hear that.
Yeah. It was,
Okay. Do we have any other questions on the cable budget?
I just have a general question comparing the electric cash statement to the cable cash statement and the depreciation fund balances. What is the thinking just behind the sort of magnitude difference between the two?
so I can't 100% speak to it, but I think a lot of what's in the depreciation fund is there, in cable side, is there for funding the fiber to the premises project. The items I've seen from prior management, the overall project was estimated to be $30 million. $15 million was going to be bonded. $15 million was going to come out of depreciation. It's an earmarked account, so if for any reason we needed that money for operating, you could have that money for operating. I don't know if I've gone back years to see when it was funded, but I think that is more why that funding's there.
Makes sense.
Yeah. We're looking into getting, especially on like the operating cash side, we want to have policies in place to be like, we want so much money in operating cash to be done with this, we want so much in this, but that's going to come with time as we kind of review and understand our position a little better and we can align it with the industry stuff. It's funny because on the electric side, it's, you want so much cash to be able to be, purchase power. Well, we also have that with the MWEC working capital account. So we have to kind of tie those two together and say, okay, what makes sense? But we want to make sure if, let's say, money stopped coming in, how many months can we fund the business and still be good?
Good. Any other questions? Do we have a motion to accept the cable budget as proposed?
So moved.
A second?
All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Thank you very much. Well done.
Thank you.
Appreciate everyone's efforts, both on the financial side, but also out in the field side, making it happen both on the cable and electric. And can't forget the IT folks. But great job. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, final real agenda item is general manager's highlights, of which I'm sure you've got just a few quick bullets.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
Yes, I wanted to call attention to a few of these legislative bits. I'm sure everyone has seen on the news, but we are, keeping our eye on the uptick in, as titled here, power grid attacks. So we are mindful of making sure our assets are also secure. But I thought it was noteworthy, just that first sentence, physical attacks on the U.S. power grid rose 71% last year compared to 2021 and will likely continue to increase. So that's just something worth mentioning, and we have not lost sight of that either ourselves. So the other one, I threw in some other supportive bullet points. I don't, in the interest of time, won't go in too deeply, but some of these just support our ongoing efforts that were in step with the larger initiatives and the electrification, transmission lines. So this, actually, I wanted to throw that one in there since we talk about this, but, this New England Power Project has legs again, so that again speaks to some of our ongoing efforts for transmission.
Well, Mr. Beaton was clairvoyant a few meetings ago when he said, it's still on life support and may come back, so it looks like it is, so.
Yep. So I just wanted to cover that. And again, that's the same theme, throwing in the heat pump component. This article about margins for the investor-owned utilities speaks to some of our efforts as we just discussed through the budget. I just wanted to compare and contrast the themes there where we're actively managing our budgets to make sure people's hard-earned money stays in their pockets. And then the last one, just again, showing the volatility of energy pricing. So those were the kind of the between the lines thinking I had of putting those in there.
Great.
And then otherwise, it's our standard report.
Okay, and the one outage we had was the
Oh.
attack on our infrastructure.
That's
It was
right.
Done by a raccoon.
Yes. Yep. That was a good one. But kudos to the team. I mean, that was back up within 30 minutes
Yeah.
or so.
28 minutes.
28 minutes.
When I lost power, I started my timer. I just said, we'll see how long this takes. 28 minutes later, bingo, it came back. Come to find out it was a raccoon that was found. And, did you find the carcass of the raccoon the next day? I heard that they pretend.
He's actually still alive.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
But he wasn't, he left, he went away, but.
Holy smokes. Literally, physically. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Okay.
smoking, right?
Wow.
One hell of a raccoon.
Yep.
Okay.
Is that all you got?
Just real quick, I want to remind the public, because if they're watching us live at least, that the SELCO scholarships close out this Friday afternoon to close of business. That scholarship applications, there are 3 $1,000 scholarships. And so, get your applications in, and this for
Well,
any.
for the
any
parents out there, nag your children.
Yeah, any senior at any school, okay, and but as long as they're a resident, the student is a resident of Shrewsbury, they're eligible for those scholarships, so. Okay. Anything else you want?
Just if there's any adjustment to the next meeting.
Yeah, so the meeting, we just met. Do we need to have the March 28th meeting, or do we want to defer and go to April? Because I'm not sure what the date for the April meeting was.
It was fairly late, actually, in April.
Well, because we had school vacation. The April meeting?
The April
25th.
meeting is on the 25th.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's towards the end of the month.
I would not be able to make the March 28th meeting. I'm going on
Okay.
vacation.
Well, that's even a good reason. Okay, so I would propose, the other subject is 7:30 too early? Can we start at 8?
I'd prefer to start at 8.
You would prefer to start at 8?
So
Okay.
would I. It's a sacrifice.
So if we were to defer the next meeting to start at 0800 on what the
The 25th.
25th of April,
April,
which is
yeah.
a Tuesday, normal times. Do I propose?
Approved?
Pardon?
I was,
Do I have a proposal to have that meeting?
Yeah.
The next meeting, I don't think we're deferring any other business.
25th, you said, right?
25th of April.
At
Tony,
8
you agree with that?
a.m., yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
There was a second for that meeting?
Second?
Okay.
And
All
we're
in favor
changing-
that the next meeting will be April 25th
Fifth.
at 0800? Okay. Great. With that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
That's good.
April 25.